I'm going to confess something to you here in Module 3. I find the Kolb learning cycle a little confusing. I feel like there is a Kolb aha moment hovering slightly outside of my grasp. Since it's confusing to me, I figure that some of you might be confused as well, so I've provided lots of materials for you in many modalities. There's text, there are videos, there are graphic representations. For me, it helps to just get in and try it. That's exactly what you'll get to do in the discussion this week. Apply Kolb to a learning activity. Now, don't worry if you feel like you don't know what's going on. The whole point of the exercise is to figure out what's going on. Remember the zone of proximal development and the kid learning to ride a bike? If you don't feel a little bit wobbly, it's probably too easy. For some of you, Kolb is old hat. You've covered it in several classes before. Maybe you already actively use it in your teaching. Help your classmates out so that we all leave Module 3 feeling like maybe, just maybe, we understand the Kolb learning cycle. Okay, so we're back to the old slides for one more unit. This is Kolb's four-part learning cycle. You have a concrete experience, some sort of learning event. After that, you think about what happened and what you learned from it. This is the reflective observation. While pondering on what you learned, you think about what you might do differently as a result of what you learned. In doing that, you use what you already knew and you tie it together with your new learning. This is abstract conceptualization. Finally, you get to active experimentation. What would happen if you did this or that? Once you've experimented and incorporated your new practices, you'll begin again with an improved learning practice. You can enter this cycle of learning at any point. You don't need to start at the concrete experience. Maybe you start with experimenting based on all of your previous experience. Maybe you start with a big reflection session, thinking about the things that you've learned before, and then moving forward. I find this image a little more helpful than the last. First, you do the learning activity. Then you ask yourself, what did I do? What did I learn from that? Then you ask yourself about the significance, the so what stage. And then in the now what stage, you try the new things and figure out what you can do next time to make it better, and then the cycle begins again. So, with that basic understanding of the Kolb learning cycle, let's put together Kolb with what we know about UDL. There are three keys to understanding the intersection of the two. The first key is the opportunity for students to engage in activities that are worth thinking about. The concrete experiences need to be worthy of reflective observation. You can use UDL to make that happen. You can teach using multiple means of representation, which encourage reflective observation. You can also have multiple means of expression, including having the students interact with each other. The diversity of engaging with each other will give them more to reflect on. As I read your learning logs each week, you often note how the different perspectives of your peers made you think differently about your own approach or thinking about something. This is Kolb at work. You can also coax the students into abstract conceptualization by helping them to connect their learning to their lives. For example, the video I shared with you this week telling you how you can use the Kolb cycle in reflection on your teaching. So, this is the first key to tying Kolb to UDL, learning activities worth reflecting on and worthy of learning from. The second key is the opportunity for interaction around ideas. We just talked about how letting students interact with each other can expose them to ideas they might not have thought about on their own. That is what this is all about. With multiple means of representation, you give students several ways to learn about the materials. Now, it can be intimidating to think that you have to create all of these multiple means yourself. Fortunately, you don't need to. The world is full of things called learning object repositories. Learning objects are pieces of instructional content. For example, this video that you're watching is a learning object. The graphic that we saw a couple of slides ago is a learning object. A set of test questions would be a learning object. You see what I mean? If you search for Learning Object Repository in your favorite search engine, you'll find lots of things, including Merlot, one of the most famous and oldest learning object repositories. We'll talk more about this next week when I share my famous copyright lecture with you. You'll also want to give students multiple ways to express themselves. For example, even in a face-to-face class, it's good to have a combination of face-to-face and online discussion. These two kinds of discussion engage students in very different ways. The people who think when they talk tend to dominate a live discussion. The people who like to carefully consider what they say can shine in an online discussion. The result is that everybody gets to have their say. Finally, encourage students to use existing tools to delve deeper into their learning. For example, if students are already on Facebook, have them use that for learning more. It's not important that you, as the instructor, be super comfortable with all of the technologies. Rather, let the students take the lead and engage in the way that they feel comfortable. The third and last key to connecting UDL and Kolb is to provide students with the opportunity to actively experiment through additional activities that follow the initial learning. For example, encourage the students to share what they learned in a different format from how they learned it. If they learned in a lecture, maybe have them find an infographic that expresses the same points. Similarly, think about how you can create activities that give students the freedom to engage in different ways. Again, you need not carefully identify all of that yourself. Just open the door and be surprised and delighted with what your students walk through with. I realize that this kind of openness takes a certain level of confidence and boldness in your teaching. The more you teach, the more comfortable you'll get with exerting less control and simply guiding the process. You do, however, want to create structure for the learning so that students feel comfortable engaging in multiple ways. Provide general activities and then give them the freedom to do those activities in different ways. So, to sum it all up, we want to provide activities that encourage critical thinking, activities that give students something to reflectively observe about, and we want to give our diverse students the chance to engage socially and collaborate, sharing their diverse ideas, which provide even more fodder for reflective thought. Finally, we want to provide even more activities for students so that they have a chance to experiment with new ideas. You'll get a chance to work through this cycle in the discussion this week. As I said at the beginning, you don't need to totally understand all this to get value from the discussion. My hope is that, no matter where you are with your understanding of the Kolb cycle and UDL, this activity helps you develop that understanding more.